All right, I wasn't even gonna do this. I even said on Twitter, I was like, you know what? Not even gonna do an Interstellar spoiler review. I saw a lot of comments on my Interstellar review and a lot of comments where you just didn't understand the movie. And at that point, doing a spoiler review isn't going to get them to be like, oh, yeah, you're right, I was wrong. If you're convinced of something, you're gonna believe it no matter what. But I had a lot of fans, like good human beings, like not shitbags, who were like, I wanted you to talk about it. I want to hear what you had to say. So for them, I do this spoiler talk of Interstellar, and I consider that a spoiler warning too. A lot of spoilers. If you haven't seen Interstellar, go see it, because like I said, it's a good movie. Apparently people miss that shit too. And be warned that this video is gonna sound more negative than I want it to come across as. However, I feel like the thing I have to back up in my initial Interstellar review are the negatives that I found in the movie. Generally speaking, people don't actually have to back up their positives. People take their positives for what they are, positives. But when a negative in a Christopher Nolan movie is addressed, people are like, eh, they back up and shit. They're like, prove it. This is me going, this is why I felt there were negatives in a very positive movie. So yeah, I just got back from my friend's son's birthday and I was dressed like this without the suit. And I was like, I don't want to dress whatever, I'm gonna wear this. It's hot as shit under these lights, but let's do this. Let's talk about Interstellar. So in Interstellar, like you knew the setup was, Earth is dying, crops are dying, and Matthew McConaughey is like the last person who can go into space, and they go into space, and they go through this wormhole, and they find the solar system with 3 planets orbiting a black hole. They need to save humanity. But before we get there, on Earth, Murph, his little daughter, she's like, oh, I have a ghost in my room and keeps knocking down books. This was the first thing to bum me out in the movie, which is simultaneously the last thing to bum me out in the movie, or the last-ish thing to bum me out in the movie, because right when she said that, she was like, I have a ghost in my room. I was like, no, that's gonna be Matthew McConaughey at the end of the movie. I shit you not. And I asked a few people who had seen the movie, I was like, all right, was that obvious to you? They were like, yeah, it was. When foreshadowing is that in your face for a movie like this, you can't help but feel like, it compromises the experience a bit. And people out there might say for some shit-ass weird reason, well, you're supposed to know, but it's all about the journey getting there. No, you're not supposed to actually know that. I just saw it as that really obvious Christmas gift that gets put under the tree 2 weeks before Christmas. It's like, oh, Merry Christmas, Timmy, but don't open it until Christmas. And that's always a bummer when that happens. But Matthew McConaughey goes, they go through the wormhole, they come to the solar system, they're like, all right, we need to go to these planets. All right, we're gonna go to that one planet where relativity is really strong. 1 hour down there is 7 years our time. I thought that was really cool. I love relativity. I love time. That was cool shit. But I did feel like they just went down there and went, oh, big tidal wave. We need to go. Let's go. And they go. Like I said, it was a pit stop. They were like, nope, out. And I'm not gonna lie, that wave was a bit too huge. From my understanding of water, when the water's 3 feet deep, it's not gonna produce a wave that's as big as the Final Fantasy VII Leviathan summon. Then they get back to the ship. It's like, oh shit, it's been like 20 years. And as cool as that was, you can tell that that pit stop was just created so they can show relativity. Because that's an element of the movie and it's cool stuff and we want to see it and now we see it. It just wasn't subtle. It wasn't woven into the movie. It was a blatant like, all right, relativity's coming. Cool, right? Well, yeah, it was. It is heartbreaking when he catches up on messages from Murphy and he's like, oh man, she's as old as me now. This sucks ass. I say Murphy, not his son, because who gives a shit about his son? It was really cool seeing Casey Affleck in the movie. I did not think, oh, you're a good character and I care about you and that's just where we're going in this movie. I would have preferred the movie made Matthew McConaughey a single dad with a daughter and that was that. At least at that point, you don't feel like he's just neglecting his son right down to the very end of the movie where love is all quantifiable and shit and he sees his daughter, not his son. You know, his son's like, oh, thanks, Dad. That's awesome. Yeah, what? Am I not quantifiable? Do you not give a shit? Thanks, buddy. That's rad. Peace. Then they go to the second planet where they meet Matt Damon, Dr. Man. Could you make it any more obvious that this guy represents man? Or at least one aspect and dynamic of mankind. The only way that you can make it so in your face obvious is naming him Dr. Man. Oh, they did. And I've seen people say, oh, it doesn't make sense that he just tried to kill them all and blow up the ship. I mean, he probably could have been like, yeah, I lied. I was lonely. That being said, can we just go to the other planet, please? The human race is dying. You can't really afford to lose one. But I kind of took it as he's been alone for a very long time, so he's probably kind of crazy, and nothing he does is going to make sense. But it did make for a really sweet-ass scene where he opened the airlock and thing blew him out, and then it's just spinning, and Matthew McConaughey's like, we're dead. Unless I can dock with it, which is what I need to do. So he just spins in cadence with the thing, which is absolutely completely impossible to do. But he does it because he's McConaughey. He just docks with that thing, and I was like, oh man, edge of my seat shit right there. That was badass. But again, with Nolan beating his point over your head in a not so subtle kind of way, he's gonna do it again with his concept that love is the most powerful force in the universe and it transcends all space, time, logic, everything, by making Anne Hathaway go against the character she's been set up to be for the entire movie. This entire movie, Anne Hathaway's been the rock. She's been the one who's like, no, it's about the mission, the mission, the mission. Everything else is secondary, second, third, probably fourth. The mission is what matters. So what does she do? She's like, I think we should go to that planet. because my boyfriend's there. It was just so against her character. It's like Nolan wanted to show. We wanted to prove this point, and he wanted to prove that with her, but by doing that, you ultimately changed her character to someone she hadn't been the entire movie. To change a character entirely like that just flips it on his head, and it makes me go, well, why'd you do that? But at the end of the movie, Matthew McConaughey gets sucked into the black hole, and Anne Hathaway gets blasted to the planet where her boyfriend is, and McConaughey gets out, and he's in this tesseract. It's this 3D representation of a fifth dimensional world that Matthew McConaughey is in now, and he's like, holy shit, I was the ghost. And I was like, holy shit, I know. So he starts doing SOS signals and messing with the gravity, and he encodes the information they need from the black hole into the watch, and Murph's like, oh, that's the missing equation. Now we can bend gravity and space and shit. Cool. However, that leads to 100 different questions. We know they can dabble in our universe and they can see in our universe because they created the wormhole that took us to these other planets that we needed to go to. And they knew we needed to go to those planets so they can see and dabble. Couldn't they have been a little nicer about it though? Couldn't they make the wormhole a little closer to Earth rather than Saturn? And the other side of the wormhole to the planet that we actually need to go to. Rather than have us play the guessing game as to which planet do we actually go to. They can just be like, here's the correct answer. You're welcome. Can they actually weave in and out of time? Could they have taken Matthew McConaughey and just kind of plopped him on Earth right after he left? Been like, all right, here, Murphy, now you have your life back and shit. Did Matthew McConaughey need to be going towards the black hole in order for the fifth dimensional beings to snatch him up? Could they have just taken someone from Earth at any time and been like, here's the formula. All right, now take it back to Earth. It showed him going through the wormhole, in which case, did he get to the wormhole? Did the fifth dimensional beings take him there? So they don't actually operate within the black hole. They can really go anywhere. When you have fifth dimensional beings and you don't do a good job at illustrating what they can and cannot do, obviously they can do a lot. It leaves some questioning where you're like, wait a minute, they could have done that better. I take the fact that the fifth dimensional beings couldn't directly communicate with us because the same way that we can't communicate with a 2D world. I mean, how would a 3-dimensional being communicate with a 2D world? They wouldn't be able to see us because they're like right in front of each other and it doesn't work. So how much harder is it for them to communicate with us? Best they can do is take one of us and have us communicate with us. I get why it had to be Matthew McConaughey. None of the other astronauts had any loved ones at home, so they didn't have that quantifiable love with them. It's a thing in the movie. I'll explain it later. But Matthew McConaughey was the only one, the first one in history who actually had the data to complete the formula and had that quantifiable love tied to Earth, which was Murphy. So they snatch him up, put him in the thing so we can code the message to Murph, and then all's right with the world. And then it's like, love is quantifiable. At that point, I was like, the movie's now delved into magic. It's kind of laughable. I just couldn't see that shit. And the movie's so grounded into science, now love is quantifiable. I just feel like at this point, any cheesy romantic comedy you've ever seen, or romance in general, that puts love on this pedestal, it's like, oh, but we're meant to be together. You just kind of got to give it one more star because it's like, well, apparently it's quantifiable now. It's science. It just made me go, is Nolan turning into a sappy guy? Another thing that bothered me about the movie is the resolution itself between him and Murph. The entire movie is based on the fact that he wants to get back to his daughter, and his daughter hates him for a lot of the movie, and then it's like, holy shit, my dad was right. I really want to be with him also. And now he gets back, and he has about 30 seconds with a 90-year-old version of her before she's like, all right, I'm dying, and I want to die with my own family now, so you should go. Really? With that? That's kind of selfish. Like, see it through his eyes. See what you're doing to him. His love for you was so big, it was quantifiable. It saved the human race. Literally. Physically. That's what happened. And you're just gonna tell him to go piss off and go away? So as he mopes and then goes away, he goes to Anne Hathaway's planet, whose boyfriend is dead. Did he go there knowing that? As far as he knew, her boyfriend was alive. Is he going there to be like, hey, I'm a homewrecker? Or was he going there planning on being the third wheel? Like the friend, like, all right, you guys just have your relationship. I'll be, hanging out, skipping rocks on that pond. Some of the science things that were questionable in this movie is like, all right, they don't orbit a sun. So where are they getting their heat and light from? Yes, I know black holes have the ring around them, and that's energy and that's heat. It's actually really, really hot. But is it hot enough to heat 3 different planets at 3 different distances unless they're all in the same orbital path, in which case they're probably going to collide with each other? Obviously not, because one of them's really freezing, another one has water, another one looks like Earth. But they are at different temperatures. I'm just saying, are they all in the safe zone? Or could you clearly look at one and be like, that's going to be too cold? Let's go there. But Matt Damon, he's pinging on that planet. He says it's good. I don't care. It's obviously better than that. So the question is, could the ring around the black hole heat all 3 planets and heat all of them to a safe temperature to sustain human life? And if they couldn't you just eliminate them? Just as options, be like, all right, it's not heating that one enough. We know that, so bye. I feel like from orbit of a planet, you can kind of gauge whether or not it's 100% water. You can be like, nope, going away. Which does bring up a really interesting financial question about the movie. NASA was disbanded. It lost its funding years prior. However, they had enough funding to send, 12 to 15 people out there to these planets? How did you get the money for that? Holy shit. You know how much it costs to send something into space like that? A space exploration mission like this costs A lot of money. How did they get that with no funding? Also, why send astronauts? Each ship has that robot that's in it, so why not just send the robots? And I know the movie explains you can't just send the robots because they don't have that survival instinct that human beings have, whatever the shit that means. I don't see it that way. In a movie, in a world where love is quantifiable, I'm very sure you can measure the conditions of the planet and deduce whether or not human beings could live there. That's all you'd have to do is be like, hey robot, here's what human beings need to survive. Here are the living conditions. Find the planet. If it has it, ping us back. If it doesn't, don't ping us. I feel like Matt Damon should have been like, you know why they can't send robots? Because Mr. Nolan says if we sent robots, you couldn't have a movie. And that would be true. That's pretty much why. But instead of that explanation, couldn't you just make a movie with no robot in it? And that would eliminate the possibility of sending robots there. No robots, you can't have the option to send robots. You don't have to write up a bullshit explanation as to why you couldn't send robots. Granted, I liked the robot. I thought he was a cool character, but he just poses a problem for the plot. I mean, the Enterprise runs up against a situation. Who are they sending first? Lieutenant Commander Data. That's who's going. In the end, I'm going to reiterate, Interstellar was a fun movie. It was a good movie. You should see the movie. The movie just had problems that I've already explained, so I don't need to go over them again. I'm an astronomy fanatic and a movie fanatic. This should have been my jam. So yeah, to answer your question, I got the movie. I just didn't feel the movie was executed as well as it could have been executed. And at that point, it's still a movie. It's not church. It's not gospel. It's not a science textbook. It's a movie. And as a movie, yeah, the movie was good. You should see it. It's just not the greatest movie made in the past 30 years is all. If you disagree with me on my consensus of Interstellar, that is fine. If you think I'm a piece of shit because I feel the movie is good and not mind-blowingly fucking great. Spoiler alert, I can think of 10 movies right now that I like better than Interstellar this year. Interstellar's not going to be in my top 10 favorite movies of the year of 2014. So if that bothers you so much, if you hate that so much, there you go. If you can handle it, awesome. Hey, see you next time. So that's my consensus of Interstellar. Do you agree? All that good shit, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.